Taiwan is losing one of its few remaining diplomatic allies following the election of ruling party candidate Lai Ching-te in Saturday's presidential election. The government of Nauru, a small island state northeast of Australia, says it will no longer recognize Taiwan as a separate country, but as part of China's territory. Beijing welcomed Nauru's diplomatic switch in favor of China. Beijing claims Taiwan as its own territory, and the Nauru flag was subsequently removed from the diplomatic quarter in Taiwan just days after the election of a new president. Let's get more on this from DW correspondent James Cheta in Taipei, who has been following these elections and these developments very closely. James, Taiwan has lost another diplomatic ally. Does this portend a more diplomatically isolated future for Taiwan under Lai Ching-te?
Well, just to emphasize, first of all, how significant this timing is. This has just come 2 days after Lai Ching-te of the ruling Democratic Progressive Party won his election, securing a historic third successive term for the Democratic Progressive Party. And now, on the first full working day back after that election, we have this cessation of diplomatic ties with Nauru taking Taiwan's diplomatic allies down to a total of 12. What this really demonstrates is that Beijing's strategy of diplomatic, economic and sometimes military coercion that we've seen over the past 8 years under the ruling Democratic Progressive Party under Tsai Ing-wen is likely to continue. Taiwan has now lost 10 diplomatic allies over the course of that 8 years. In a press conference just a few hours ago now with the Deputy Foreign Minister here in Taiwan, he said that China had used this moment specifically days after the election, when international attention is on the strength of Taiwan's democracy, to go after Taiwan's people, and that he also said that China had used false promises to lure Taiwan's friends away. He also reiterated, though, that he thinks Taiwan's democratic partners will see through the strategy that China is pursuing here.
Meanwhile, a U.S. delegation has already arrived in Taiwan. What message does the U.S. want to send with this unofficial visit?
Well, Washington has been very emphasized very much the unofficial nature of this visit from former officials. They say that this is within the confines of their existing policy towards Taiwan, and that this is part of a routine practice following a Taiwanese election where there will be a shift in administration. And the really important thing from the perspective of the Taiwanese government, and something I think that they will be emphasizing over the coming days, is that despite this diplomatic cessation we've seen with Nauru, that the U.S. presence is visible and is here in Taipei as this has taken place. Taiwan's government will, of course, express frustration with the loss of this diplomatic ally, but they also recognize that the existing diplomatic allies, the formal diplomatic allies they have, are countries with small populations, with little geopolitical influence, and sometimes actually questionable democratic credentials. They recognize that when it comes to the threats they face from China, the unofficial relationships they have with partners like the US, Japan, and European partners are going to be much more significant in protecting Taiwan's sovereignty going forward.
We'll leave it there for the time being, but thanks so much for joining us today. DW correspondent James Cheta in Taipei.